Chapter 10. Tiffany. "So, where are you going tonight?" Holly asked as she slid into the seat across from Tiffany. As owner of the restaurant, she didn't have long to chat, but at least she managed a few minutes with Tiffany whenever she came in. "Glow golf at the mall?" Tiffany smiled as she remembered their encounter that morning. She'd been thinking about Israel since their church date the day before, and just when she was about to make up an excuse to go see him, he'd appeared at the childcare room door with a smile and a friendly greeting. She tried not to take it as a sign. After all, they were in that fun honeymoon stage of dating where you could never get enough of the other person. But it was interesting that he'd appeared just as she was about to go find him. "A date in the dark, huh?" Holly wiggled her eyebrows suggestively, though she knew that Tiffany would do nothing inappropriate, even in the dark. "Ha ha, very funny. It's glow-lighted, so it's not exactly all dark, but even if it was—" I know. Holly leaned back and held up her hands. "You wouldn't do anything. We haven't even kissed yet." Though Tiffany had played the moment over and over in her head. What would it be like to kiss him? Israel was clean-shaven, so she had no doubt that his cheeks would be soft, and if the smoldering looks that came out of his eyes hinted at his kissing ability, she couldn't fathom it not being mind-blowing. "I bet tonight will be the night then. What will this be, your second date?" "Third, if you count church and the walk after." Tiffany still had trouble grasping that she'd gone from no dates to now 3 in 4 days. 3 dates? Is this getting serious? Holly's brow lifted in question. Tiffany pressed her lips together as she thought. "I don't know, but he seems really nice. I guess I'll know more after tonight." She glanced at her watch. "Speaking of which, I need to get out of here if I want to clean up before he arrives." "Okay, have fun." Tiffany had no doubt she would do just that. She waved goodbye to Holly and headed home to take a quick shower and freshen up. They had set the date for 8 o'clock, and Tiffany had eaten a light dinner with Holly, so by 10 till 8 she was ready and waiting. As expected, the doorbell rang 5 minutes later. She smiled as she opened the door. Israel had told her once that he'd picked up a mantra in the military. Arriving early is on time, arriving on time is late, and arriving late is grounds for reprimand. It made sense when you thought about it, and she certainly appreciated that he showed he valued her time as well by showing up early. "I'm going to warn you now that I am not a good golfer," he said with a crooked smile. "I've tried once or twice, but there's a reason I never took up the sport." "Don't worry, I'm no Tiger Woods either." She joined him on the step and locked the door behind her before grabbing his hand. "Besides, it's glow golf, which means it will be dark and hard to see. How good can we be expected to be?" "I guess we'll find out." He opened the truck door for her, helping her up, and 20 minutes later they were pulling into the mall parking lot. The mall had once been a bustling center of activity with a plethora of stores, a movie theater, restaurants, and more. But with the increased ability to purchase items online, many of the stores had gone out of business. Now the large structure was mostly empty, housing only the golf course, the movie theater, and a few restaurants that operated at minimal capacity, mainly for the employees of the golf course and movie theater. "It's so sad to see it like this," Tiffany said as they approached the entrance. "When I was young, this place was always busy. I remember begging my father to let me come and just walk around when I was in high school. Now I'm not sure if the local high schoolers ever come here." "What happened to it?" Israel asked, holding the door open for her. She shrugged. "Amazon and other online businesses? Why drive to a mall when you can just get what you need delivered to your door? That's why only the experience-type things have lasted. You can get a sweater dropped at your doorstep, but watching someone play glow golf just doesn't have the same appeal." The sense of sadness grew more palpable as they walked to the golf center. With all the storefronts closed, it looked more like a ghost town and less like a mall. "Maybe there's something we can do to help the local businesses come back," Israel said, glancing around. "I'll talk about it with Chance." Really? Tiffany hadn't thought she could like Israel more, but his offer to help bring businesses back that he'd never even known touched her heart. He really did seem to have a heart for others, something Connor definitely hadn't had. "Of course. He took over the resort to help veterans. Maybe we can incorporate that into the mall somehow. It's worth exploring anyway." Yes, it is. Tiffany wanted to kiss him right then and there, but they had reached the Glow Golf Course. A young high school-age teen greeted them as they entered. "Welcome to Glow Golf. Have you been here before?" From his monotone voice and expressionless face, Tiffany guessed he'd asked that question a lot. "I have, but it's been a while," Tiffany said, thinking back to the few times she'd been in high school. "Well, I'm not sure much has changed, but I'll go over the rules for you anyway. At the first station, you grab your clubs, balls, and scorecards if you want to keep score." He pointed to an area to the left. "The most important rule is that the balls must stay on the greens. Throwing balls is not allowed, but I'm sure I don't have to tell you that." Tiffany chuckled, knowing that rule existed mainly for the little kids, who didn't always know better, and the rowdy teenagers, who did but didn't care. "Second, only one person on the green at a time, and you can't jump ahead of anyone just because they're slow. The last hole will take your ball, signaling you are finished. Are there any questions?" Tiffany felt sorry for the poor kid. It was obvious he felt ridiculous pointing out the rules to them, but it was part of his job. His boss had probably drilled it into his head that everyone got the same spiel, no matter how old or responsible they looked. "I think we've got it, right, Israel?" A tiny smile tugged at his lips. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're clear. Thank you." The teen looked relieved as he motioned for them to go to the first station. "I do not envy his job," Israel said as he pulled a club from the container. "Me either. Can you imagine having to give that speech 30 or more times every day?" Tiffany shook her head as she grabbed a bright orange ball. "I can't imagine giving it more than once." Israel plucked a neon yellow ball up and glanced at the scorecards. "Are we keeping score?" "Nah, I thought we'd keep it more fun." Tiffany smiled as she saw his shoulders relax in relief. The glow course was separated from the outside area with walls, making it feel a little like a dark tunnel, as Tiffany set her ball down and tried to see where the hole was on the other side of the small green. "They should really touch up the paint on this," she said, glancing around. "I can hardly see where I'm supposed to hit." "Me either, but maybe that's what makes it fun." He squeezed her hand and flashed a wink, sending a trembling sensation down to her toes. "I guess we'll see." The flirtatious tone of her voice surprised her, but Israel simply motioned for her to begin. She craned her neck and squinted, finally picking out the hole behind the large impeding structure of an elephant that she wasn't sure she was supposed to aim for or avoid. There was a ramp at the base of the elephant's feet, so she took a chance and tapped her ball in that direction. It rolled up the ramp and disappeared in the darkness, but a second later there was a soft thump, and then it rolled into view again. A trick ramp. This was going to be more challenging than she remembered. She lined up to hit the ball again, this time aiming for the side bumpers, and after another 3 strokes, she managed to sink the ball in the hole. "Took me 5. Think you can top that?" "I thought we weren't keeping score," Israel said, as he placed his own ball down. "We aren't, technically, but how about a friendly wager? We won't keep an overall stroke count, but the person with the lowest strokes wins the hole, and the person who wins the most holes is the winner overall." Israel leaned against his club for a minute as he thought. "Okay, but what does the winner get?" A kiss was the first thought that flew into Tiffany's head, but she couldn't say that. Could she? Winner gets to choose. There, that ought to leave it open. If she won, she could choose a kiss. And if he won, she'd get to see what he wanted most. Choose what? Tiffany shrugged. Whatever they want. What we do next, the next date. She paused, hoping her innuendo hung in the air. Whatever they want. It wasn't an offer she would make with most men, but she knew that Israel thought the way she did. Even if he won, he would never choose something that would make her uncomfortable. You're on. Israel, having the advantage of seeing the ramp was a trap, aimed his ball toward the bumper and managed to make the hole with only 3 strokes. He grinned at her as he scooped up his ball. Guess I won that one. So you did. She stepped aside to allow him to place his ball down on the next green. He looked at her, and even though it was dark, she could see the confusion on his face. With a smile, she motioned for him to step in front of her. Winners go first on the next hole. His teeth glowed in the dark as his lips parted in a smile. I see what you did there. Tricky, but I think I'll still win. He placed his ball down and then searched for the hole before sending the ball flying again. He was a better golfer than he claimed, and by the time they reached the last hole, the game was over. He had 9 wins to her 8, so the best she could hope to do was tie him, but she was pretty sure she was going to lose the bet. However, she didn't mind. She couldn't remember a time she'd had more fun, and a part of her wanted to see what he would choose if he won. 4 strokes, she said, as her ball fell into the hole at the end. Pretty sure you've got this in the bag. He grinned at her as he placed his ball down. You never know what can happen. While that was true, Tiffany felt like she would be a winner either way. She held her breath as he tapped the ball the first time, sending it shooting up the ramp and out the other side. Now he simply had to make it under the rotating windmill blades, and he would be home free. As if endowed with extra luck, it sailed through the blades and into the hole with the very next shot. Huh. Well, I guess I won. He seemed almost shocked as he stared at the dark hole his ball had disappeared into. I guess you did. Winner gets to choose, so what do you want? Israel stepped closer to her, his eyes devouring her face. A surge of heat blossomed between them, and Tiffany felt as if they were enclosed in their own private bubble. What would you have chosen if you won? She bit her bottom lip, unsure if she should tell him. Would it be too forward? Somehow, with the intensity flowing from his gaze, she doubted it. I would have asked for a kiss. Her words were soft and breathy. He took the club from her and laid them both aside. Then he stepped closer, placing his hands on her chin. Well, I guess great minds really do think alike, because that is exactly what I was hoping for, too. It had been a long time since Tiffany had kissed anyone, and though she knew it was cliché, she felt like her heart stopped beating in her chest as he held her gaze. His thumb brushed across her cheek, sending goosebumps erupting like tiny soldiers down her arms. And while she wanted the kiss to happen, she also didn't want this moment to end. As if her face was a book, Israel's eyes read every inch of her visage before he tilted his face and placed his lips upon hers. She did not hear fireworks or bells. Instead, the moment he touched her lips, she felt as if the world had stopped, literally paused on its axis and stopped spinning for this moment in time. Tingles shot throughout her body, followed with a feeling of pure contentment, as if in his arms was the place she had always been meant to be. Wow, she said when the kiss ended and he pulled back. His hands were still on her cheeks, warm and soft. That was worth repeating, he finished with a smile, and Tiffany couldn't have agreed more. Unfortunately, their moment was interrupted by a rowdy group of teenagers who had come up behind them. Get a room, one said, pointing his club at the hole. "You're blocking our play." "Sorry." Tiffany felt the heat rush to her cheeks as Israel grabbed their clubs and they exited the course. They dropped their clubs off and paid the bill, still chuckling as they exited the course and headed back toward the car. "That was embarrassing," Tiffany said, cutting him off. He grabbed her hand and pulled her close to him. "I was going to say amazing." Heat crawled up her neck as his eyes held hers. "But those kids were probably just jealous," he finished. "I didn't see any of them kissing a beautiful woman." Beautiful? He thought she was beautiful? How long had it been since someone had told her that? Or maybe they were jealous of me. After all, I was the one with the handsome man. Her arm circled his neck, and before he could say anything else, she leaned up and kissed him again. This time, there was no one to interrupt the kiss, and when it ended, all they could do was smile at each other like goofy teenagers. "It's not too late," Tiffany said, not wanting the date to end yet. "Do you feel like some ice cream?" "I feel like anything that allows me to spend more time with you," Israel said as he opened the truck door for her again, and Tiffany couldn't agree more.